Ocelot flees, leaving you to figure out if this apparent being from another world is your friend or enemy. It seems Rex and the stealth nuke aren't the only secret black projects on the Shadow Moses nuclear disposal facility. Snake begins gathering intelligence from the badly beaten and tortured Baker, who confirms the worst. He's talked. The terrorists have both of the required launch codes. The nuke is free to fire any time, and the 24-hour deadline's drawing near. Frantically, you ask about the override keys Baker's supposed to have. Ironically, he gave them to the woman who almost shot you on suspicion of killing the DARPA chief.
Woman? Who?
A soldier that was thrown in prison along with me.
A female soldier, it must be.
She said she had just joined up as a new recruit. They threw her in prison because she refused to take part in the rebellion.
But there's a second person you need to contact. The lead designer of Metal Gear Rex, Hal Emmerich, who's being kept prisoner in the Arms Tech Development Lab across the base. He's likely to know how to stop Rex before you can begin tracking either the woman or the scientist down. Baker fills you in on why Armstech and the DoD believed this terrible superweapon, Metal Gear Rex, was worth creating at all.
In the 20th century, in order to be a military superpower, you had to first be an economic superpower. But things changed toward the end of the century after the collapse of communism. With all the surplus weapons and technology floating around, even economically weak countries could have a powerful military. After the Cold War ended, the chance of a full-scale, worldwide nuclear conflagration was diminished. But on the other hand, the chances of local tactical use of nuclear weapons greatly increased. Civil wars, revolutions, regional disputes. It seems like there is a new war popping up somewhere every day, and many of them are the result of centuries-old hatred between different ethnic or religious groups. These people do not think rationally or logically. In such conflicts, there is no concern for the high civilian casualty rate, and international criticism means little. A nuclear deterrent is meaningless because emotions run so hot. As long as nuclear weapons continue to proliferate, the chances that someone is going to use them will also continue to grow.
We live in an age when any small country can have a nuclear weapons program.
What about the other superpowers?
Russia and China still maintain a significant nuclear presence. Complete nuclear disarmament is an impossibility. To maintain our own policy of deterrence, we need a weapon of overwhelming power.
You mean Metal Gear?
The development of Metal Gear is a cynical attempt to consolidate and increase our military dominance, while at the same time maintaining the pretense of disarming ourselves. With Metal Gear, governments of the world will be able to avoid inspection, and at the same time stay in compliance with international nuclear treaties. That is amazing.
But then, the third mysterious event takes place. After handing over a copy of Rex's test data for Snake's superiors, Baker too suddenly dies of a heart attack.
What did you do to me?
Could it be it's your presence that somehow triggered the deaths of both hostages you were sent to save?
I have no idea. Don't lie to me.
Your support team isn't informative, but Snake soon contacts someone who is.
Boy, oh boy, it's just like them. Nobody told you anything, did they?
Meryl, the woman from the prison, happens to be Campbell's niece. Is that what drew him out of retirement for this operation? From the get-go, it's clear part of what made her want to become a soldier are the legends that he told her about you yourself.
Could you be Snake? Are you Solid Snake?
That's what some people call me.
The legendary Solid Snake? You? Sorry about before. I wasn't sure if you were one of the good guys.
Meryl was taking part in what your support team briefing vaguely referred to as a training exercise, which seems to have been the initial spark that exploded into this armed uprising / mini military coup d'etat. Finally, you'll be able to hear from an eyewitness what the hell's been going on Shadow Moses Island. But it soon becomes clear that your briefing wasn't only unnecessarily vague, much of it contained many lies and deliberate omissions. In order to convince other nation-states to reduce their nuclear weapons, the US needs, on paper, to be disposing of them, specifically the ones they've promised in treaties and international agreements to get rid of. But since the industrial military complex relies on the continuing belief in deterrence for its budget and therefore its existence, experimental trump cards like Rex must continue to be made in secret. The Shadow Moses facility, on paper, is a nuclear disposal plant for the US government, but in reality, it's a privately owned base used to house, build, and test the superweapon developed as a joint project between the public and private defense industries, the walking, nuclear-equipped tank Metal Gear Rex. But according to Meryl, once the VR testing stage was complete, they moved on to a simulated combat exercise as a final gambit for the machine. The Pentagon needed real soldiers to participate, but they couldn't be your average grunts. To test Rex, you'd need something like an entire army of phantoms. Special forces units, in other words, that could be trusted with zero risk that they'd ever speak one word about this top-secret, highly sensitive weapons testing operation to anyone. There were only 2 units who fit all those scenario requirements, yet ironically they only fit them because both units were top-secret projects themselves. One was the military's secret batch of genetically modified super soldiers known as the Next Generation Special Forces, or the Genome Army. The other, as mentioned, is Snake's old unit, Foxhound, out of the US Army. Instead of maintaining operational security during a test firing of a dummy warhead from Rex, Foxhound joined forces with the Genome soldiers and staged a rebellion against the US government. Clearly, these maniacs have put their lives on the line. Even though Meryl confirms she has the override keys that Baker gave her before the revolt started, Snake realizes that stopping the launch may very well require taking out Rex himself. To figure out how to do that, Snake resolves to rescue Metal Gear's head engineer, Hal Emmerich. But Meryl needs some time to unlock the path for you, so you're left to your own devices for a few. At which point the story progress is paused to give you some time to explore and experiment with Baker's Level 2 pan card and the toys that it unlocks. Of course, this room to breathe foreshadows an imminent mini-boss battle with the tank of Foxhound member Vulcan Raven.
This is Raven's territory. Snakes don't belong in Alaska. I will not let you pass.
The difference between good and bad players in MGS is in your ability to learn from mistakes and accidents. Some players, for example, will be blindsided by Raven into a panic, and at that point, they're vulnerable to forgetting about the stealth claymores everywhere, and they're bound to have to retry it at least a couple of times. Meanwhile, confident or observant players, or just people on their second playthrough, can gather up the claymores before the fight begins and turn the environment against Raven's tank. This demonstrates not only that there are multiple ways to play this game, but also that it has plenty to teach in terms of how to master it, but only for those who are willing to learn.
Well, boss, I hope you are happy. He got the card.
We'll play with him a little longer.
As soon as you step into the main hangar of the nuclear warhead storage facility, Snake learns Naomi's little injection gave the government the ability to turn off his ability to use weapons.
Be careful. You absolutely must not use weapons in that area.
I've already programmed the nanomachine so that he won't be able to, Colonel.
Is there anything else Naomi or the Colonel isn't admitting about that shot? You try not to think too much about it as Snake takes the elevator to basement level 1.
Snake, watch out. That place is filled with gas.
Who is he, you wonder, as you fire remote-controlled Nikita missiles to destroy the generator, supplying the electrified floor between you and Emmerich's lab its charge? It isn't until arriving in Hal's lab that you learn the identity of this mystery contact.
Snake. You're that ninja.
Who Snake discovers is actually a phantom from his own past.
Who are you?
Snake became a legendary hero in the eyes of those who live on the battlefield by some of the worst sins imaginable. When his former commander and comrade went rogue years ago, Snake killed one with his hands and the other with fire. And it's the former, Snake's old war buddy, codenamed Grey Fox, whose broken ghost now haunts this exoskeletal shell. Now you learn why Fox has helped you over and over. He's been saving you for himself. Not because Fox wants revenge. He craves some way to relieve his phantom pains of yesterday's glories with Another fight with Snake to the death.
A long time for this day. Now I want to enjoy the moment.
The second full-blown boss battle in MGS1 is, of course, the cyborg ninja, once called Gray Fox. In this epic showdown, we find early attempts by Kojima to add elements of player choice feedback into the boss battle mechanics. You can take on Fox in a number of ways, and since the fight has multiple stages, no single method will be good enough the whole way through. And yet again, there's a psychological component, just like with Ocelot. Fox is literally forcing you to fight. It's more like something out of Akira than Rambo. Instead of straightforward Hollywood action, like was promised on the box, we're instead getting psychological horror and sci-fi.
What? Not again. What's happening?
But before the outcome of their bout is decided, Fox has another spasm of mental agony and disappears.